Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, here with Derek Ficken to get the Beckett Media portion of his hobby history, what he's been up to the last 7 years. I doubt that we can fit it in 15 minutes, but we're going to try. First, thanks sponsors: Topps Panini Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, the other Beckett entities, all of whom are Derek's employer and my former company that I enjoyed so much. So 7 years ago, Derek, welcome to the show. You were hired, and not just for your voice, but we saw something in you, and you've had I think a pretty amazing 7-year ride where you've done a lot of different things. And like I have visited with you and said, that those are the kind of people that are really valuable to a small or medium-sized company. So tell us about your Beckett ride, what it was like when you came in, and bring us through to the present.
Sure. Yeah. I was brought in, 7 years ago by Mr. Dan Hitt, and Brian Fleischer has, I hate giving him props, but Brian Fleischer is a good friend and we like giving crap to each other, but both of them were very pivotal in getting me on, and basically needed a pricing analyst. And when I was brought on, it was a nice little 4-man crew back in 2013 where Brian and Dan were the heads, and me and Justin Gruner were kind of the guys to help. And I think, it's been a while about thinking about this, but I was doing basketball, football, I think I was doing soccer and a little bit of like tennis, things like that. And then Justin helped Dan out with all the other sports. And it was crazy at that time for a 4-man crew to do all that. But with the leaders of Brian and Dan, somehow we knocked it out. We were able to get deadlines met and magazines out. So that was great. But that kind of transitioned my way into wanting to do more with the company. And luckily, I had my radio background, which I think Dan really saw as a potential opportunity to make another avenue for news outlets with Beckett. And so I started the podcast. And when I say start, I started it because Beckett did have a podcast when you were there. And we did mention that, me and Justin Gruner, how we are not creating something, we are starting it back up. So it was very fun to do. I think we did, 100 or so episodes where it was very hard, very difficult, but we did it and we had a lot of fun. I was able to bring in Eric Norton, who I think a lot of people know and love, and he is a great, great friend of mine. And he has done what I could never do with it. He's done absolute great work with it. And I am just so happy to see what it's turned into with Beckett Live Presents now, where I just the Fat Packs, we're 1 in a million with him and Paul. So it's great to see what Eric's doing. But to going back with kind of my story, it was pricing with a little bit of radio. Mr. Rob Springs and Bill Sutherland were very pivotal in the Beckett auctions kind of phase or chapter with Beckett Media. So I was heavily into that, where I was doing daily, verbiage for the auction items. I was getting social media coverage for the big items. I was trying to send Charlie Sheen documents about high-end cards to try and get him to buy things, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So had a nice little run with that. And then the auctions team kind of disbanded, and I eventually made my way into grading, which, shout out to Jeremy Murray. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. I owe him a lot. And I tell him that on the regular. Without him, like I said, I wouldn't be here. And the people that I've met, it wouldn't be, without him. So I was able to get into the grading department and become a regional sales manager. Had no formal sales experience. Like my voice training, I have no voice training. I just, he saw something in me. And we went to the Houston TriStar show together. We also went to the Toronto show together. And I guess those 2 shows, I did pretty good work. And he decided to keep me going on it. And here we are 5 years, 6 years later after taking on that Beckett grading position. So it's been a crazy ride, many departments for sure.
Yeah, Derek, there are not many people. There's a small fraternity of people who've done pricing and understand the understatement of what you're saying about how difficult that job is and how tricky it is. So my hat's off to you. The amount of output with 4 guys, it's just, it exponentially increases every year. And so my question to you is, did you enjoy that always or for a while, or did you miss that? Because it's very weighty.
Sure. It's to answer your question. Yes, I do kind of miss it. Back then, I was a kid. I was, early 20s. I was excited to get into the hobby and the industry. So I was willing to do anything it took. I think the part where it was 4 guys trying to do that department, was tough, very difficult. And as a kid, I wanted to do so much. I wanted to do, like I said, the podcasting, which was a big thing. The auctions, when that came out, I wanted to see these historical pieces come through. So it got to the point where it was such a demanding position that I thought it would be best when more people were getting hired on to try and, do something else. We're a department that needed people with Beckett Auctions to try my hand at a little bit of the journalism, I guess, side of things with describing these items and promoting them via social media. But yeah, that job, I do miss it. It was fun to forecast in a way and to watch sports in a different way as well. Instead of just being a fan or watching a game to watch a game, you were a little bit more invested. And I truly feel it's changed the way I watch to this day, which is very, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think every year it gets the correlation with fantasy increases, which
yes,
sort of makes your job easier as a pricing analyst, but sort of makes it harder because it's not a perfect correlation. Okay, so then you're involved with grading, and what people don't realize is there's like the inside guys and the outside guys. And the inside guys that nobody gets to see very often behind the curtain, they're really good guys. And I guess a couple of gals. I know Roxanne.
Yep. Roxanna's still there. Yeah, but we have a few others. Yeah.
So but it's mostly guys, and they have a real strong fraternity. But then the outside guys, which you're out there pitching it, have to have a different personality. Have to know what to say, what not to say. And so that's a tricky job as well.
Yeah.
How much was that your favorite job?
Yes. To this date, it will go down as my favorite job, just because really the correlation between trying to work the back and that fraternity, to have those graders be on your side, and understand what you're going through in the front, and to also befriend customers in a way to where I still talk to them to this day. I'm not really doing the sales side anymore, but I still talk to a few of them. And some customers have turned into my friends, but to be able to work well with the grading guys, which I'll be honest is sometimes tough to do. They're stuck in their ways, and I get it. There's nothing wrong with that. But to be able to work with them and consider them friends, and for them to understand what the sales guys go through up front, it's a nice little game, I guess, if you want to call it that you try and play to where you make the job work. It's something not for everyone, to try and do. You have to be a special person to be able to talk to someone who really, they might not really care about you. They just want to get the product, and that's totally fine, So
when I was in charge, I really tried to impress upon our whole team that we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. Okay?
Of course.
And so we want to, if anything, and you don't want to like intentionally underpromise, but if you're going to underpromise, then you want to overdeliver.
Yep.
But in truth, the larger grading companies, of which BGS obviously is dominant, there's been a problem in the last year of maybe underpromising and underdelivering because it's so overwhelming. And how do you deal with that? Because you do the graders are doing the best they can, but it's just a numbers game when you have really it's overwhelming success in many respects. But how do you explain that? Because people just want their cards. They want good grades.
Yep.
But it's
and they want them on time.
And exactly.
Yeah. Basically right now too, with the seasons being on hold, it's a different story. But, let's say this time last year, people were dealing with backlog, and they had, they were trying to get their basketball cards back quick, because the finals were happening, and they wanted to sell, their Steph Curry rookies and their Kawhi Leonard rookie prisms. So, it was very difficult to try and keep everybody happy because of the backlog, the tremendous backlog of cards and submissions overall. And I'm just going to be honest. I'm an honest guy. And so I would tell people up front, hey, this service is taking this amount of time right now. And in X amount of months, it could be even longer. And I'm not going to sell something just to get the sale. I'm going to do it with the thinking of these cards might be worth X amount later on. So it will be beneficial for you to pay a little bit more to get them back quicker because this service isn't as delayed in a way. So it was a juggling game constantly.
We do positive tone here, but there was one thing that you were involved with that either you didn't have the Midas touch or Rob didn't or Bill didn't. But why do you think the auction, again, there's some excellent auctions out there, of which a couple are sponsors of this show, but why didn't Beckett Auctions do better?
Sure.
I'm not blaming you, Derek. I'm not blaming you or anybody else, but it's a crowded field. And, some people were surprised that it didn't do better, and some people were not surprised. What's your take on that? Again, in a very positive way.
For sure. It was a short stint with Beckett Auctions in general. The team that we had consisted of Bill, Rob, Tracy Kaplan, who Tracy is awesome. She was so much fun to work with, and myself. And so in my opinion, to start an auctions department or just an auctions team, I think you needed to have double that staff. To start something like that, I really felt like you should just be pushing out stuff to where we were doing monthly auctions. And then we got into the case breaking when case breaking was coming out. And I just think it was something to where it was something we did, but there wasn't really a whole lot of backing behind it. It might have just been a short-term thing to try and get into. And if it didn't get off the ground too quickly, we were going to focus our time and efforts and resources into more of the grading side, which was exploding at that time. And they needed all hands on deck, as they continue to do. So I wish it stayed, because it was so much fun.
I think
to see the items.
It was a lot of fun. I was talking to those guys at that time, and I was hoping it would do well, but it's just this industry is really at heart a hobby, where people have their preferences and they have the way they do things, and they have their relationships, which are important too. And so,
of course,
it does take time to build it up, even though the Beckett Media and Beckett Publications before that had relationships with lots of dealers and collectors. We weren't the first ones integrating. People already had established relationships with PSA. And so, and some of those have endured, and some we've won away, and I'm sure vice versa. So your relationships are important, but you still gotta perform, and and grading sure has, and they're, like I say, they're feeding the beast. Scraps of red meat into the grading room. But last question. So the podcast, the Beckett Live Presents. Do you see that as an extension? Are you going to, if that goes on to great success, which I think it will, are you going to claim you're going to be the grandfather of that because you were involved? You've handed off to Eric, and Eric is and Paul's gone now. But so what do you think?
I take nothing. No, I am just a bystander, a happy bystander to see something that I did and an idea that I had, to bring Eric on, the podcast. And he has taken it, and like I said, he's ran with it and then some. I had lunch with him last week, and we talked about it in great detail. And I said, man, there's no way I could have ever thought about doing something like this, and so that's why, to see him get the notoriety in the hobby now, to see him on social media with his following, to see him at the national, on the main stage, the Mike Burkus stage, doing what he did and continues to do. It's incredible. And I'm so happy and proud for him, because I remember when he came in and, he was here to do coins, and I knew he wasn't a coin guy, but, he was a good dude. And I wanted him to be on the team. And, just like me, I wasn't huge into the hobby when I got hired, but, my spark came back. So I was given an opportunity to come on board. And so that's why it was great to get him on board. So long story short, I'm taking nothing from that. It's great to see it. And I hope they continue to have great success with it, because it's awesome to watch too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. We're out of time, Derek, but it just, Eric was one of the guys I was worried about with COVID, because I thought he was going to get clinically depressed because he was deprived of his passion. He was away from his equipment and was not podcasting, not connecting like he loves to do. So Eric, I'm glad you've survived COVID even without getting testing positive. Thanks, Eric. Thanks to Beckett Media for having a great team, of which Derek is a great example. Eric is too. So thanks, everybody. Be back again tomorrow with another episode.